I, I read and I searched more. I read Gifford's Evolutionary Reasoning chapter and Topical Issues on Pain, and I was floored by how wrong my misconception of pain had been. I read Melzak's Neuromatrix paper, I was all in. There are a couple guys in Australia who've published a book that tried to explain things in a way that made sense too. I felt empowered. I was explaining pain to anyone who would listen, which turned out to be not too many people, which is of course how I ended up in home health. That's your fault too, you know. But I won't blame you for my move into middle management. That one's my fault alone. But you encouraged me to read, you encouraged me to write, to empathize, to wear a necktie, to write again after I had stopped, to become less hairdresser, more therapist. You encouraged me to think critically, to pay attention to everything, to become more than I was, to strive to be the most well-read person in the room, to develop a premise. And damn you in that notion of premise, Barrett. I've spent the last 5 years trying to develop a premise that makes sense to me, but the more I learn and the deeper I dive, the less sense it all makes. And don't mistake me, I'm unquestionably in a better place now than I was before. For instance, I'm thankful for you bringing my attention to the essay by Rachel Naomi Rehm entitled In the Service of Life. Her brief writing remains one of the most important things that I've ever read. I was reminded of it often last year at San Diego, but at no time more than during the patient experience panel, when the mother of a teenager with chronic pain desperately sought guidance from the panel. I was walking the room that day. I handed her the microphone and knelt down beside her before she bravely stood up in the middle of a large room in front of hundreds of people and strangers in San Diego and online, exposed, tearful, exasperated, and at a loss. When she stood up, she didn't know how to help her daughter. She returned to her seat, still powerless, still carrying the same burden that she'd brought with her. Her emotion and humility laid in stark contrast to the righteous and self-congratulatory tone emanating from the summit's participants. Of course, I was one of those folks, maybe even the most righteous. I don't know, but I was acting as a good physio because I was seeking information on the latest in research and theories about the treatment of pain. While there were countless physios participating in scientifically unsubstantiated continuing education courses that same weekend on skin scraping, kinesiotaping, visceral manipulation, postural syndromes, we were learning legitimate stuff, important stuff, cutting edge stuff. We were the smart ones. That's why we were there. But if we were so fucking smart, why the hell was that mother still crying when she sat back in her seat with no better direction than before she had risen? It occurs to me now that she came to the summit with a false premise. And it isn't her fault. It's the same premise that most clinicians work from. She came to the 2018 summit thinking that we offered help, but we don't. Not really, anyway, and when we do, we're doing our jobs wrong, I think. I suspect that she was disappointed at best. I dare not think of how she felt or what she thought at worst. The problem, of course, is that we shouldn't aim to help. 20 years ago, Remen asked us if perhaps the real question is not how can I help, but how can I serve? Most of the time, our professions fail to see the distinction. Other times, we simply fail to acknowledge it. But the distinction is an important one that we should keep at the forefront of our minds when we engage with our patients. Remen wrote, quote, "Serving is different from helping. Helping is based on inequality. It is not a relationship between equals. When you help, you use your own strength to help someone of lesser strength. If I'm attentive to what is going on inside of me when I'm helping, I find that I'm always helping someone who is not as strong as I am, who is needier than I am. People feel this inequality. When we help, we may inadvertently take away from people more than we could ever give them. We diminish their self-esteem, their sense of worth, their integrity, their wholeness. When I help, I am very aware of my own strength, but we don't serve with our own strength. We serve with ourselves. We draw from all of our experiences. Our limitations serve. Our wounds serve. Even our darkness can serve. The wholeness in us serves the wholeness in others and the wholeness in life. The wholeness in you is the same as the wholeness in me. Service is a relationship between equals."